My name is Miss Terra, and welcome to Aurora's World of Magic. Today we are going to be going through how to draw a human face using our boy, Harry. So let me get my camera a little bit down here. You guys want to see his face and not mine. I'm going to keep it down here just so as I talk you through things, you can see me and see what I'm doing. Alright, so we're starting with, that looks like it's from probably Order of the Phoenix, so like a teenage Harry. And we're going to start, I do my undersketching in red because he's a Gryffindor. I'm going to start by making a circle. And then Harry has a pretty strong jaw, so I'm going to come down here and I'm going to make, a lot of times I'll make a circle, but I'm going to make it kind of like a chunky, somewhere between an oval and a rectangle. And that will help just bring that heftiness, squareness to his jaw. And also to bring that down, I'm going to bring in the sides of the face, and both of them. And the rules about the size of your face, you can do a lot of different shapes. Right now I'm doing really strong jaw for Harry, because Daniel Radcliffe has a pretty dang strong jaw. But you can do all sorts of different shapes here, depending on who you're drawing. So, like, if you were drawing, like, say, Professor Sprout, you might have, like, really round cheeks. Or if you were drawing Snape, you might come in and have really sunken cheeks. And all of those are okay. It just matters that they're the same on both sides. Unless it's something like when Harry gets hit with a spell and his face swells up so they can hide him from the Death Eaters. Obviously, at that point, his face is supposed to be different sizes. So that would be the one exception, is if something has happened to your character's face. Alright, so now we've got the main parts of our face in. I'm going to go ahead and give him eyes, and those sit right where this came up. And then I'm going to give him a nose, and my favorite way to draw the nose is this little buddy over here I call the nose gnome. And I learned this trick from someone else. It is not my own. But part of the reason I like it is because, that's going to go right about here, I can use it to make a lot of different shapes of noses. So Daniel Radcliffe's nose comes a little bit down here, and then the nostrils kind of go straight up, and then he has a pretty strong long nose. And kind of bring that through so that I'll know where his eyebrows will hit too. The last thing I'm going to add is his mouth. Now, in this picture, Harry's clearly not happy, but I don't want to draw Harry quite that unhappy, so I'm going to give it a little bit of a smile. Put his ears on. These are just kind of like two heart shapes on either side. They go from about eyebrows down to a little bit around the middle of the nose. Put some extra little C shapes in there to give it shape. And the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to bring his neck down. And sketch in a place for his tie. I draw the whole tie because we're just doing a profile, but get that shape in there. Alright, now I'm going to turn down this layer. So one of the cool things about using digital art is you have so many layers, and they are free, and you can use as many as you want. So I'll do at least one layer of a sketch, not more. With this, it's pretty straightforward, so just one layer. But if I had like characters and backgrounds and owls and all that, I might do a couple different sketch layers, and you can do them in different colors too, which is really nice. But now I'm going to come in, and I'm going to start my top layer. So I'm going to go a lot slower for this, and I'm going to start with the edge of his face. And you notice I'm both being sketchy, but as I'm sure I like the lines, I'll kind of go in and firm them up if they're a little bit too sketchy. So a lot of art is just going back and forth and being like, do I like this? Okay, clean it up. Or do I not? Go ahead and erase it. And you'll also notice I'm kind of outlining the outside. That is my style. So I'm a comic book artist. And because of that, I do a lot of inking when you take a pencil drawing and color it with ink, or outline it with ink. And so because of that, I have certain ways that I start, and one of my ways is to go ahead and do everything on the outside. So you may notice there's something I didn't sketch in. maybe you've noticed that right now Harry Potter is not rocking one of his iconic things. And I just did that way because I wanted to see how my black lines looked. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to sketch it back in. I'm going to go ahead and sketch it with different colors. Why not? Now, one of the things that I am very sad about with the movies, very few things, I think they really nailed a lot, but I wish Harry's hair was messier. So we're going to give Harry some crazy hair. Because you can't maybe necessarily tell, but I also have crazy hair. As a kid, I was always like, heck yeah, Harry and Hermione and their crazy hair, that is my thing. And then Daniel Radcliffe has a little bit messy there, but he has pretty calm hair. Doesn't really go everywhere. So now I got that sketched in. And now I can go ahead and outline that as well. So I'm leaving those sketchy lines behind. I'll probably go in and put some more detail in later too, within the hair. And I'm also going to be going in and erasing lines that I don't need anymore. That happens a lot during drawing. You'll make a line and then you get to the point where it's done its job and you can just erase it out. Not all lines you draw are permanent. For example, let me go ahead and erase out where these overlap. I also create a lot of art based on Art Nouveau, which is an art style primarily from France from the late 1800s, early 1900s. And because of that, I do my hair in a very specific way. So again, if you don't draw this way, that's okay. We all draw our own ways. And hopefully watching this, you'll pick up some things that really help you. And some things you may be like, oh my gosh, I would never draw that way. That's weird. And that's totally fine. That's how drawing works. Some things really work for you and some things not so much. Go ahead and take out my underlayer for a minute. See, this is very messy and that's a little bit hard to see with my underlayers. So we are doing a sketch, so it's going to be a little bit messy. But I want to keep that messiness down to a light roar. I think that's good enough for now. We'll go back into his hair a little bit later. As I keep going. Alright. So, I've been using a pretty big line here for my pencil. And sometimes I'll even go bigger, especially we might go hit the outside a little bit more towards the end. But now I'm going to go ahead and go into it. And I'm going to go with a lighter pencil to make my details. And this helps him pop out a little, especially if, not with this, but if I was doing like a background, you know, maybe he was in the common room or something like that, having those thick lines will really help him pop out from the background when you see him. I'm adding a little bit of marks to give you a sense of shading. We're not going to do a ton of shading in this. I'm going to put the lines on with color, not with pencils. So let's get that. These tie lines. Alright. A lot of wobblies going on here right now. Turn up my stabilization. So a really cool thing on digital art is you can turn up stabilization, which makes your line smoother, which helps a lot because, well, digital art is amazing. It does end up a little bit harder because you don't have as much responsiveness of your like paper and pencil. So being able to turn up that stabilization really helps counteract that and kind of give you that fair shake at making art the way you would by hand. Now, the flip side of it is if you turn it up way too much, it's really hard to sketch, so you got to kind of go back and forth depending on which part of the art you're doing. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put some texture inside her ear, so it's not just like a little shell there. All ears are different, so we don't have to do a lot of details here. We're not really focusing on his ear. I'm just giving him some loops so it looks like a real person's ear and not like, oops, different ears on both sides. And that's not much like the side of the face. You can do pretty much anything, but it should look pretty close to whatever you do on the other side. So I'm going to go ahead and bring these back together. That looks pretty close. Alright. Now let's go ahead and start on Harry's face. So I'm going to start with the nose because it's right in the middle. And like I said, Harry has a pretty strong nose. So let's start with that. Nice strong nose. It is a thin nose. It's not that thin. So we're going to bring that up a little bit. Maybe add a couple marks there so that you can see that it's going up and down and the 3D object coming out of his face. And that's a lot of why noses are so hard. And why I use the nose gnome is it's really hard to make a 3D shape a 2D shape. And that's what all of art kind of is, right? And noses are really particularly hard because they don't have really defined borders. They're all just shapes. Right now this picture could be Harry Potter, but it could also pretty easily be Deku. If you're an anime fan, it's a good start for Deku here too. Alright. We've got the nose. Now let's go ahead and give him eyes. And Daniel Radcliffe kind of, oh, I'm on a big pen again. Let's go back to our smaller pen. Daniel Radcliffe has these kind of, actually, I like the big pen better. Sometimes. And again, I'm drawing Harry Potter, not Daniel Radcliffe. So it's not going to look exactly like him, but I am using him as my inspiration. Well, like you can see, we made the hair messier. This is going to look like my version of Harry Potter, not slightly, very inspired by Daniel Radcliffe, but not actually a picture of Daniel Radcliffe. I love him as Harry, so he is my mental image of Harry, but Harry is also not just Daniel Radcliffe. Alright. And Harry has a rough life, so I'm going to make sure that he's got some bags under his eyes. You can see it on Daniel Radcliffe. He's got some stress, right? Alright, now, this can be really hard because we want the other eye to look exactly the same. And that's not always easy to make happen. So what we're going to do is I'm going to sit and turn my page. You guys can do this a lot easier physically. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to draw lines to match up the bottom and the top. There we go. And the eyebrows and this eyelid. On there. Oh no! That's why we turn things the other way and back. Alright, that didn't work. Let's try it again. Let's try it this way. And I'm gonna go ahead and use my line tool to make them. Ooh. Nope. So if you have a ruler, this is the equivalent of using a ruler. Now with the line tool, I could probably leave it straight up and down, but alright. Still a little crooked. Let's do one more time. And this is pretty common with art. You'll do something and you're like, no, that didn't work. And then you do it again and you're like, oh, okay, that worked really well. Or you might do it again and be like, nope, that didn't work. There we go. We'll just do this too. So what this does is this helps me keep everything in line with And the other thing I know to put the eye in the right place is that, let's get some different layer real quick. This and this are going to be about the same distance apart as that. Mine are a little bit wider. Sometimes people have a little bit wider, a little bit narrower, but it's about the same distance between the eyes as the eyes are wide. I also just realized I'm going to make a slight edit to my nose because I made it too small. There we go. We've got pretty defined right here, so. Daniel Radcliffe. This is my Harry. Maybe he does it. Alright. No, down more. Good. I'm going to go up here and get a bigger marker, fill in his, or a bigger tool to fill in his pupils. Your pupils are just about the only place on your body, if you're coloring things naturally, that end up like black, 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 black. And that's because they're actually a hole in our eyes that light goes into, which is really cool. Oh, I see what's happening there. Okay. I'm going to erase some things that don't need erased. And so it's one of the few places that ends up black, 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 black. And it's interesting because our eyes, and we'll hit this later, are also one of the few places where you end up with something that's pure, 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 pure white, which is the shine off the light. And it's just interesting that our eyes are the only places those hit. Alright, I'm going to give him some cheekbones, as Daniel Radcliffe has. That's one of the things I really like. Then we're going to go ahead and do his lips. And he has pretty thin lips. But like I said, I kind of think of Harry as always kind of having a little bit of a mischievous smile. So I'm going to make him look a little happier than Dan does over there. Alright. And then, there's a very important thing I've left off, right? Harry isn't Harry without his glasses. So when you're drawing glasses or a mask on somebody's face, you want to draw their face first, and then put that thing on top of it. And then now I don't think Harry's do this, but some people have glasses that then they'll like magnify or shrink, then you can go in and adjust that in afterwards. So we always draw light if we're not drawing digitally. But if it doesn't have that, then you're just drawing it kind of to sit on top. And I'm going to tell you guys a secret. Almost nobody is good at drawing circles by hand. So I'm going to use my drawing ellipse tool, but if you're doing this at home, find a quarter or the bottom of a cup or something like that that has that round shape, and you just trace it. It's a little too thin. Let's go here. That's still, I think, a little thin. Let's go heavy. The heavier things are, the more they press forward. So with his glasses, that is actually pretty well. And I'm going to do a nice digital trick that I get to do. Tools on digital can save you a lot of time. We're going to duplicate this round layer and then just slide it over. And that way I know it's the exact same size, the exact same weight, and I don't have to worry about it. And we can come over here and connect them. Maybe give it a little pad for where it touches the nose. Over here. And you may have noticed that I did this on a different, no, it's on two different layers. I did this on a different layer than his face. So we're going to go ahead and drop that. The reason I did this is because now I can come in and do things like make his glasses a different color. Now his are actually pretty solidly black. So I think what I'm going to do, put them back to black, and then I'm going to make the rest of this drawing, gotta lock it before I do this, and make it a very light round. That way his glasses feel like they're a little bit heavier on his face because they're solid black. The other thing what I'm going to do while I'm in here, switching out colors. Unfortunately, this is something you can only do digitally, to switch colors after you've drawn them. And I'm going to come in here around his eye for when we color it, and I'm going to make that line around his eye blue. I think I actually want to go a little bit darker blue than that. And you'll see when we color it in fully, I think that just makes it pop really nicely to have the color instead of the line color. Alright, I'm going to go in. I've still got some messy lines. Let's do a little cleanup. Get myself totally happy with this. A little bit messy here and there. Like I said, a lot of art is just going through and refining and doing something and then going through and refining it. And that may sound boring, but I actually find it very, very fun, very relaxing. Like, this is the fun part. It's like a puzzle trying to figure out what works and what doesn't work. A little bit messy hair still, but I think that's appropriate. We want a messy hair. We'll let it be a little bit messy in the drawing as well as the style. Hope nudge that messiness in. Alright, so now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start coloring. So I recommend when you're doing digital coloring to come over here and open a new folder and then put all your colors in that folder. It just helps me keep straight what's colors and not, especially because I'm really bad at naming my layers. So now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to just start filling in my colors. I have a fill tool, and on Clip Paint Studio it's really nice. It has a refer other layers, so that just means that it is referring these lines I drew up here. It's using them to decide where it fills paint on this layer that has no lines. So it's referring the other layer to figure out where its lines go. And this color's a little on the pink side for me, but it doesn't matter right now. I'm just filling everything in. I'm not going to worry right now about coloring the glasses any differently. I'll get to that step later when I color the glasses. I also have this close and fill tool, so this is really good to help me like get little spots that maybe got missed, that sort of thing. Alright, so now I'm going to lock this layer and I'm going to see about finding a skin tone I like a little bit better. Let's try this one. That's a little bit better, but here's real pale. There we go. That works. Alright. I really very much like headcanons where they create a Desi character, so like you can paint India, but we're going to stick to what Canon gave us. Alright, so that is that. Let's do this tie. Nails. Right now I'm just filling everything in. I'm not worrying about coloring it or shading it. I'm just getting all my layers down and then I'm locking them so I can go in and work in them. Let's do dark messy brown, because some things say it's supposed to be black hair. Daniel Radcliffe obviously has brown hair, so we'll go, ooh, okay, so that means that somewhere my shape is broken. And so that means when I use the fill tool, it can fill everything. I happen to see a couple spots where it's broken. So first I'm going to go ahead and grab those guys, and that's part of why I was making sure it was neat. And we'll see if I see them, and that fixes the problem. Let's see. Yeah, that fixed our problem. Now I'm just going to go around again. Get all these little spots. Uh-oh, what did I hit? Oh. Sometimes when you hit something, it goes really crazy. I'm going to turn off his skin for a minute. His skin layer. That sounds creepy. So that it doesn't interfere while I fill in these little bits. All the little bits. Alright. Alright, there we go. Now we've got some messy dark hair. And the last thing I want to go ahead and do is his eyes. Now, his eyes are white right now on the paper, right? they're going to kind of be, a lot of them are just going to be white when I'm done too, so I don't have a really good color. So I'm going to color them this really obnoxious bright yellow for like 30 seconds just to make sure that I marked off all the white. And that's kind of what I did down here with the gray, but that was easier. And then once I do that, then I'll just go back in and white. But now I know that that white is a layer of white color, not that it's just my piece of paper showing through. See, it's white color, whereas if it's gone, it's just showing through. Alright, now let's go ahead and let's do some color on these guys. So I'm going to start with his face. And the first thing I'm going to do, human bodies are a lot of different colors. So I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in some color spots and then blend them together just to make his skin look like it has a whole bunch of colors going on in it. So actually first we're going to go ahead, and since again he's very, very pale, we're going to hit him with some paleness right up there. And then we're going to come in, and there are certain places that you can put colors that really help bounce out that humanness of it. So first we're going to put red on the cheeks, the edge of the ears, and the very tip of the nose, and right in the middle of his lips. We'll color them a little bit more later, but just to get it started. Then we're going to put some sunshine on his forehead, and then a little bit right here. We're going to come in and we're going to put some white right there, and then white there, because those are the spots that kind of stick out most, as well as a little bit right on the edge of the chin here. And then we're going to put some blue here, where his mouth kind of sinks in, and then around his eyes. I'm going to put a little bit of red. Oops, that's very dark. A little bit of red down there too. So right now, you notice that's, it looks kind of like a clown. We're definitely not leaving it that way. So I'm going to go ahead and blend it in. I'm going to blend it in with my wet blender brush. So if you are doing something that blends, this is the best way to do it. If you're using something like colored pencils that you can't lay stuff down and then blend it, you would just go in and do this really, really lightly. But if you have like watercolors or oil paints or anything like that, this just really helps make, you kind of see, makes everything look like it's a little bit more textured and a little bit more varied than just, and I'm not quite blending it out of existence, but pretty close. Like I want all of that to read as really gentle changes from here to there, not as really high intensity ones. Ta-da! Just gives it a lot of change across the face as we go. Just a second, this is not super important, but I want to change this to white because it's bugging me that it's gray. Actually, let's just go ahead and color in. So I'm going to leave and do this a different way. So when you're using traditional media on paper, a lot of times you want to start lighter and go darker. One of the cool things you can do with digital is you can start with any color and go to any color. So I'm going to go ahead and start lighter and start darker and just mix that white in there like that. And let that gray that I colored it with become the shadow. I'm going to blend it in a little bit. Use Paint Tool, or excuse me, Clip Paint Studio is what we're using. I really love that wet blender tool. Alright, that looks a little bit better. Alright, now let's go back into Harry's face and do some shading. So I'm going to do my shading, and the way I'm going to actually do this is I'm going to start a new layer. I'm going to clip it to that layer. I'm going to set it on multiply, and then I'm going to turn that multiply way down. So that'll make, I'm going to get a good color. We're going to choose a good purple. Now that sounds weird, but purple a lot of times looks real good in our skin, especially when you set it to that multiply. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to shade under the nose, bring in those cheekbones a little bit. And you notice right now I'm leaving it pretty blotchy. We'll blend it in. Underneath his neck. My roommate lives with that. Under his eyes, because like I said, Harry's got some, he has some stress. He's got some bags under his eyes. He's also got pretty deep set in eyes, so we'll add some shading there. Some in the ears. clean this up a little bit. That was really rough. Let's go ahead and grab our watercolor and blend it in a little bit. And with the blender, I just kind of push it around until it looks smooth and nice. I'm not trying to get absolutely smooth because shadows have edges and stuff like that. I just don't want it to be hard edged every place. Some places it should be a really smooth edge, some places it should be a really hard edge. And some places kind of in between. And you can see that going on over here on Dan's face too. I'm getting a red clipper like the same age. He could not be my dad. He could maybe be your dad, depending on how old you are watching this, but that'd be weird. Alright. Now with digital, if it's still a little too rough, I can come in and just straight blend it. And if you're not working digital, there are ways you can do that with like a piece of cotton and stuff. Just blend it right in there. But when I use that blender tool, I want to use it very gently because again, you don't want to smooth out everything or else it'll look kind of like way too photoshopped. Alright, I think that's pretty good. I'm going to see real quick if I want the shadows to be a little darker. Not that dark. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, cool. I'm going to blend out the nose. And then I'm going to go in and I'm going to take out a little highlight underneath the nose like that. And I'm going to make sure I have some around my eyes too. And with that done, we're going to do our second part of the face. Same thing. We will make a new layer and lock it to the face, but this time I'm going to add glow. I'm going to turn that glow down a little bit because it can be pretty intense. And instead of purple, we're going to use the opposite color from purple. We're going to use a light yellow. But with the glow, you're not going to really see the yellowness of it. It just makes it a little softer. You go in there and there. Go there and there. So these places where there's highlights. And a little up there, a little here, a little on his cheeks. Won't quite happen because of the way his glasses are, but whatever. Artistic license. And then again, I'm going to smooth that out. That went too smooth too fast though, so let's back up. There we go, that's what I'm looking for. I want it to be smooth, but not smoothed out of existence. And I just realized I haven't finished his lips, but we need to come in here and put a little reflection on the lips too. There we go. That's looking like Harry. And then I'm going to come and I am going to turn it down a little bit. There we go. So it's not as in your face. Maybe a little, not quite that much. And let's go down here. We're going to finish his lips. I'm going to come and I'm going to put a little bit of red here. I'm actually going to make it a little bit pinker. He has really pink lips. There we go. And then, much like I've been doing with the bleeding, the blender, I'm going to blend it out. There we go. Alright, so there we've got hairy skin and collar. Let's look at. I'm going to be pretty easy. I'm going to put just a lighter color in. I mean a darker color. I'm so sorry. A darker color onto the light color. And then much like the skin, I'm going to make another layer. I'm going to clip it. So what clipping means is that if I draw on it now, it'll only draw... Oop! Did not make a layer. I just clip this one to the layer underneath it. So what happens when you clip a layer, it means that anything on that layer will only show up if it overlaps with the layer you clip it to. So like when I accidentally clipped this layer to this layer, it disappeared because the only place there are marks were not on top of the place where the other layer was marked. Now, I have it set so it is, so I can come in and put my yellow stripes in. Now I'm going to lock that layer, and the same thing, I'm going to put a little bit of shadowing over here so that that looks like it's one thing, not two layers on top of each other. Ta-da! I don't even need to blend that shadow because it's close enough. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and look at Harry's hair now. And with the way I do hair, I actually don't do a ton of shading in the hair. And I'm not sure how well that's going to work with Harry, so let's see. Because with his messy hair, he might need a little bit more shading than I usually do. Yeah, he's going to need some highlights to make that look messy. So because I use Art Nouveau style, that's usually sort of where I'm going. But with Harry, that's not enough. If I just do that little, he's not gonna read right. So I need to do a little bit more than that. So I'm gonna put in first this darkness around his eyebrows. And then I'm gonna put some on the edges of his hair as well. Not blending it in his eyebrows because I don't want it to change. That's perfect. But I am gonna blend it in a little on his hair. And then, kind of the same as the skin, although I'm going to do them a lot bolder, we're going to put in some highlights to kind of make that look, that's a little too strong, to give it this messy look. Because part of what makes hair look messy or curly or whatever is just that the light's reflecting off of it in a lot of different places. And I am going to blend these in, but I want to stay really, really soft with blending. Oops. I'm actually picking the right tool. Because I still want them to keep this kind of like chunky sort of style to them. I don't want them to blend into the rest of the hair. I just want it to be not so clear that I made little marks on it. But again, I'm not going for hyper-realism, so I'm not going to go in and try to do perfect shading. I just want the colors and the shapes to make the idea. I don't think I like that. I'm going to go back and I like the idea, but I do not like the execution. I'm going to go back and try it a slightly different way. You thought I was kidding when I said that a lot of art is going back and just redoing. So this is not going to have as strong an effect of it being messy, but I think with the way I drew it being messy, it'll counteract. I think what's happening is that me drawing it being messy versus it being colored to be messy is making too much messy, and it's really hard to understand what's happening. So art is a lot like potion making or science or something like that way, that sometimes you get a weird, funky result and you have to just kind of go back to the drawing board and play around again until you get what you like. But sometimes you just don't get it the way you like it. Let's see. I think maybe like this is going to be better. Alright, I'm going to go ahead. Kind of got to start again. Let's try like this. Yeah, I think that looks better than what we've been going for. Okay. So we're going to stay here. We're bringing in a little bit more dark again on the edges and in the middle. Oh, too much dark. And then specifically get it in there on them eyebrows. Alright, there we go. Most people's eyebrows are, if not quite a bit, at least a little bit darker than the rest of our face, or our hair. We're going to let him chill there. Let's go ahead and work on our eyes. So the first part of the eye I'm going to do is the eyeball. You do that by putting a little bit of pink in the corners, and then a little tiny bit of light yellow in the middle. And then blend those together. And then we're going to come and just kind of stay in this yellow and put some shadow. Our eyes have a lot of shadow, and sometimes we forget that, and it can look really weird without it. And it did kind of erase my pink, so I'm going to bring my pink back in so that the pink is in the shadow, not against the shadow. And that gets the eyeball. Now let's go ahead and color in the iris. The fun part. I like doing eyes. Eyes are probably my favorite. So I start with one color, and then I bring a slightly darker color around the pupil, around the edges. And I might do that more than once, depending on how dark they were. Like that one was nice, but it wasn't quite dark enough. And then I'm going to come in with a light color, and often I'll do a light color that matches but is a little bit different, just to kind of give it a pop. So like this blue is a little bit more blue-green than the rest of his eyes, and it just helps it kind of pop out like that. Now, one thing I noticed, contrasting against these, I talked about the pupil being black, and then I changed the color, and you can kind of see, it's not bad, but it does kind of make his pupils look a little washed out. So I'm going to come in here with black, and just put a little bit in the middle, and then blend that in with the brown. I don't want it going, oh boy, that's not locked, that's why that got weird. I don't want it to go too dark because I don't want it to look weird against the other lines, but I just want to give it a little bit more of a pop of depth so that his eyes bleed in just a little bit more, especially with what I'm about to do with him. So, now we have Harry's glasses. So what I'm going to do with this is I have the glasses on this layer. And the face on this layer. I'm going to make a layer in between them. I'm going to make it super opaque white. Erase all that beautiful work we just did. No, it's not erased. It is underneath this layer. And then I'm going to set that to screen. Then I'm going to set it down. And then I'm actually going to come in with this and set it to eraser mode. And kind of erase out the middles, because glasses are really, they're pretty much see-through. Obviously, that's what they're for. So we just want to give enough that there's an idea that there's something there, that it changes things a little bit, but we still want his eyes to show through. Alright. And then my last step, and again, go to glow. I'm going to add highlights, and I am letting these ones just be pure white because they're going to be things like in his eye. And then a little bit more on the places that already were. So since they already have that yellow glow on them, it's okay to put a little bit of white right on top of them. But again, be very gentle with it. Ooh, I'm going to blend out that one. Because pure white is real strong. Pure black, real strong. So we want to just be very gentle with it and kind of add it in there. I might add a little reflection on the glasses. And with this, I can actually even go on top of the line. So say I want, kind of what I just did there, the metal of the glasses to reflect. I can do that too. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead. I want to give him a little bit of background. We'll keep it pretty simple, but let's do some nice Gryffindor colors behind him. Let's start with red. And then I'm going to add some gold. I'm going to come back to my blender brush, but I'm going to make it really big. Just to give him a little bit of something behind him. Oh, and gives a little bit of something behind him, but it actually also gives me the opportunity notice things like this, where this yellow showed through, and come back to my top layer and draw this in so that that yellow doesn't show through. Zooming into your art is always dangerous. You get lost there forever cleaning up stuff. Alright, so I think this is a good place to finish our picture of the boy who lived, Harry Potter. Thank you for joining me. I hope you learned something, or at least enjoyed drawing along with me. Have a good one.